Hello and welcome, my name is Nilaus. This is a base review of my recently ended series, This Planet of Mine. So it was in my opinion, quite successful and extremely fun series. So I thought let's relive the moments and go through some of the stages of the game together. So if you are stuck somewhere in the middle, maybe you want to catch up on what the hell is going on, or you want to see how it evolved. In any case, I think this will be a video for you then. Okay, so let's start with the concept. The concept is here, you're standing on a planet where everything is covered by ore, and anything you place on the ore that is not a miner will be destroyed. So you only have the space available and you expand outwards by mining the area. That's the concept, but what I've also added as a feature was that for each supporter on Patreon, depending on the level of support, I would be able to build a factory building, as you can see here. So let's jump forward. That's the setup. You can see not a lot of space, a bit of water here, and down all the way down here we have some oil. So that's going to come in as an interesting challenge. So let's jump a bit forward to see how it looks after episode 5. All right, here we are in episode 5 of the playthrough. What you can see here is that the base has been slowly pushed out. My intention is to make it as square as possible, because if you look at what's happening over here, man, this is slow. I'll just jump on the belt just to be ever so slightly faster. So you can see here the things are being brought into the belt, and from the belt just being ferried into different sorting locations where things will work. What we're also seeing is down here, I have started pushing a bit further ahead in this direction, trying to work my way towards oil. That's taking quite an effort. Down here we had a few mishaps. Basically was able to mine some small areas where the intention was to place some power poles so that you could sort of over time reach out, and that's what we're going to see. So now there's a small gap here where we can start expanding outward from there. And these are cars that were attacked and blown up, and then I went out and picked something up. But you can see one of the key parts here is you can see the defenses all the way around. This is using an absolute crazy amount of materials, and since this is a marathon and difficult recipes, there is just a ton of materials being consumed. You can see here how little iron actually comes in, and that's unfortunately just the way it is. So going into steel and going into copper, going to iron as well, it's just way too much. You can also see up here continuing to go into the green circuits. But at this stage, the biters were kind of getting annoying, and I did not have a gap all the way around, which was a bit of an issue, because then you couldn't just get one ammo belt. By the time you get one ammo belt all the way around, it gets a lot easier. So with that, let's jump a few episodes ahead to see how the game progressed. Here we are in at the end of episode 10. That means about 40 hours of play, and you can see now there's a much better structure. Currently, you can see here we have 30 available, or 39 available, and we've currently used 30 of these. Not a single one of the medium or the big ones yet, but that's because they were not researched yet, and they were also quite expensive. So you can see here we now have 4 lanes in at each location, 4 lanes in for each, 8 lanes in. So theoretically speaking, there could be 16 lanes in, and that's certainly enough. At this point, the ammo belt goes all the way around, and that makes things a lot easier. The issue out here has been, this is actually part of where most of the material is coming from. You see that we started having these small locations out here. That has now been reinforced and widened just by having out here, just along the sides, simply paving a way, and it's working its way over here. See the last bit, these bits here, they have a lot more in them, and the oil deposit has now been tapped and just gradually working away with some manual things. One of the key parts of this, which was quite kind of fun at this moment, was the whole car juggling. Let's actually see if we can, oops, don't stand on belts. So the issue was that you could see here, these locations, things were mined into cars, and then I had to go in and take the car and drive it back up here, park it in one of these locations where it would then be unloaded and fed into the base. It was a bit of a card juggling, but it was quite an ingenious way of solving it, because you can actually set miners up mining into cars. The only issue is that they will empty eventually, and you need to manually move them. Likewise for the oil, you can also see up here there are now 2 cars moving back and forth, emptying all of the full oil barrels and getting all the empty oil barrels. So tech wise, we have some red, but they're not really being used yet, but it's getting there. It's being available. Also cut a bit off of the water, soon to be a disaster, but at this point we have the tech we need. We have the water, we have the oil, we have red signs or red circuits, and up to blue signs that's working along. So let's use the opportunity to skip a bit further ahead. There's the start of a bus here, so let's skip ahead. Now things are really taking shape in this base, and we can see here that everything has now been completely squared off. A lot of the area has been covered by concrete, and there's a big pile of accumulators. They were easy to make, so why not make it? Also, one of the key points of the defense is now that we are using laser turrets everywhere. That has significantly increased the power utilization, but then again, actually not, only when they start working and spiking. But here, now one of the issues was that you can see here there's a new pattern already at this point, starting putting speed modules in, because they're actually trying to get as much utilization as possible. This pattern was actually really working well. If you look at this one, the first one would import or place it on this little belt, which would leave it on the inside, and this one would put it outside. So these two locations here would actually balance the belt by themselves, which meant that belts were quite balanced. Of course, corners are still an issue. That's how it is, but basically working all the way around. And a lot of the materials is still coming in from this area down here, where it's just gradually widened further and further. It is about at this point that we start going into the uranium, not because we particularly need it, but because it's starting to be very much in the way. We also started to make a small appendage out here where we just gradually take as much iron as possible, but it is kind of risky. The furthest one out can easily get attacked. So basically the base here, tech-wise, let's have a look. We have blue signs, the red circuits is being produced. All that seems to be okay. So this has been focused very much on expanding and building logistics in the last couple of episodes. Here is one of the components from the Factorio Extended, the new ammo, not being used particularly much. If we look out there in the world, there have been an excursion with a tank to clear everything available in here. And at this point, the expansion has been shut off. Okay, well, let's use this opportunity to jump a bit further ahead. We are now in the after episode 20, I believe. And it's about 80 hours of playthrough at this point. And so when you look at it, it doesn't seem like much has been done. You can see the grid here, the sacred grid has been established. This little appendage out has now been expanded further down, and we now are working towards having like a bigger area. These are now mining drills MK2 or Mark II, and they are mining a much bigger area. So that's where we're going for a very long time, continuing at this level. They mean mining a lot faster, and you can see here, well, at this point, not a lot is coming in. The oil has been liberated. They are now using pump jacks Mark II and just gradually trying to grind away at this area as much as possible, because on the grand scheme of things, yeah, this is quite difficult, or it takes up a lot of space. What has also been built in the meantime, actually this is very interesting. It must be right at this, because this area is not defended at all, and neither is this. Kind of risky. But at this point there is a very small amount of blue circuits being done. Let's just pop into that one just to see how it's going. So you can see here, it's really suffering from the fact that, yes, there are items coming in, but it's just not enough to fulfill any kind of support in here. So unfortunately, this is the stage. And I guess that stage continues all the way until endgame, where blue circuits will be the dominating factor. And also here, you can see how it goes in and how little yellow signs is actually coming out. A bit of a shame, but that's the way it is, because each green circuit requires, what is it, 5 iron and, no, 2 iron and 5 copper. That's a lot, but that's just the way it is in mod pack. So basically at this point we have most of the research up. We also have built the first nuclear power plant. It is only a 4 reactor, as you can see in the top left hand corner, but that will be expanded shortly. Tech wise, well, hovering at about 150, maybe a bit more. So definitely plenty of capacity left power wise. These have now been added. This took quite a while to build, but it was totally worth it, because now the option is that you could take 1, 2, 3, 4, 16 lanes in, and they would actually not be split evenly, but they would be split so the majority of iron. You can actually see there can be 8 iron out. 16 in could, or 12 in could actually be 8 iron out. That's the whole hope. So you can see here how well this is performing and how much is actually coming out. And look at this big belt arrays. I love watching those belts flow. That's absolutely beautiful. Now let's jump forward to a bit further. Here we are now in episode 25, so a bit over 100 hours of play. You can see the first uranium deposit down here has been completely annihilated. The next one is very fast being consumed as well. And the base is getting more and more square. This area has not been started yet, but it is absolutely essential to get that. The water supply here is kind of an issue, because now we have 2 big locations. Each of them have 8 reactors. It turns out that they would not really produce them as much as the theoretical output was, but at this point it certainly produced enough power to support the entire base. You can still see the power consumption is very small, and it's not able to really scale up. I mean, at this point, yes, there's a lot of things that are idle, but that's just the way it is. But one of the key things that has been done is this ring around, and sorry, this ring around here, and we'll just jump into the next, moving forward to the next episode. Now we're in episode 30 of our campaign, and we can see how much the space has evolved. We now have the train network all the way around the squares. We have added logistics train network. No, we have not. We have simple systems here. The way they are operating is that each train is operating, each of these is called copper out. Well, there's a copper out. When it reaches 20, which is the full capacity of a train, it opens up the station. So you can see here, closed, closed, closed. This core was open and the train goes in. The point of this, or the great thing about this system, is that it's very simple. It doesn't require any logic or anything like that. It's just trains are idling over here, and then they will go out once one of the stations is available. However, the problem is that it will not be able to have more than one of each train operational at any given time, because there's 1 copper train, 1 iron train, 1 coal train, 1 uranium train, and 1 whatever the last one is. And that's simply not enough. You can see here now there's coming a copper in, which is all fine and dandy, but at some point the base will outscale this, and therefore there's a need for something better. At this junction, I was considering using the Purposeful train network or the vanilla train network, but it was just so well suited to look at logistics train network. Basically, you can see here the base is not entirely square yet. This one needs to be pushed out to here, and then these two are not exactly alike, and also all the way out here. The biters are, yeah, they're annoying, but they're not that bad. And the corners here are nice and square. As you can see here, the setup is slightly different. Now we use it this way out so that each of these can actually harvest a very big area. And that's pretty much how it works for the last time, for the remainder. Here we have these stations. They're using this loading or unloading where it unloads into a splitter, which will enable it to actually put out on both sides, and it will be much higher throughput. So this one will be how I unload trains in all future until something changes, of course. See, most of our tracks here are green, and I think there are some. No, what we're also seeing here, unfortunately, is all the beautiful filtering here is now gone because things are coming in by train. They're coming in here, getting into a big facility that handles all this, the processing. And here as well, copper processing, plastic processing. So all these processings, they are working differently, and pretty much all of it is working quite well. You can see up here, steel is lackluster. And that's simply because of the size we have, and we're feeding it 4 belts, but that's not enough to get any meaningful amount of steel outbound. And that's basically it. At this point, we have a lot of the science is already working. We do not have we do have this part, so we are starting to build that, but we do not have at this point the rocket silo built. So we're just farming this just in order to be able to do it once we get to it. You can see here, no rockets have been launched, no SpaceX components have been initiated. So let's jump forward in time a bit more. Here we are at episode 35 of the series. It is about 160 hours into the playthrough, and the base has a pretty good shape. This has been pushed out. You could see before. Now this one is a square. It used to go, the vertical rail line used to be here. Now it's been pushed out a bit, and it has been changed to it has not been changed to a logistics train network yet. Nope, not yet. But what has happened is that down here we started making the best solar panels, and that changes the amount of power that comes in to be very much focused on solar power, or not at all at this point. You can see how little it is, but there is 1 gigawatt of solar panel. That's actually what we have here, which is enough to deliver what is needed for the base. So at times, yes, but it definitely needs to be scaled up. At these locations, they are ready. They're still operating at the same way that see, at this point, they are unable to fill it up. At this point, I guess it's because a lot of the limits around here is empty. Yeah, it needs to be pushed out. You can see here, it needs to be pushed out. It is quite easy to push it out once it's one big line and you have a lot of robots. So you can see at this point, not even full, but still having 200 robots in the inventory. And here we have the 2 inbounds. This one, at this point, it's only the copper one, the iron one. It's coming in. Very proud of this one. This is really good, really good. What we are seeing at this moment, this is like the last bit where this is just emptying the storage, where copper is in surplus and iron is in shortage, and that is definitely changing. The reason why up to this point that we've used more iron than copper is because of all of these belts. If we just look at the insanity that these belts are, okay, so it's 20 plus one of these, and that's 20 plus one of the other ones. And that's still, where is that? So it's 142 iron for one of these belts. And don't even get me started on these, so undergrounds, right? Because they need 4 of the other undergrounds, right? So this is 140 plus 2 times this. So it's 160 plus 2 times 160, that's 480 plus 4 of a double set of these. It's 480, so it's 682. I think that's probably some calculation, but as a single set of underground belts here is 680. So of course it will be using a lot of iron, and once we stop using belts in these quantities, then iron is simply stockpiling and copper will start being in shortage, because then the issue is here, making sure that we build enough. At this point it looks like they're missing some sulfuric acid, but whatever. At this point we are researching faster than light A, and still have not really any of the other researches as part of the what is it called? It's called SpaceX. But we've launched 6 rockets. That's something. So we are starting the end game at this point. let's jump forward and see what the next bit is offering. Here we are in episode 40 of the show, and at this point it's about 200 hours into the game, and we have now switched the trains over to logistics train network, which is operating absolutely phenomenal, and it just fills up everything. Look at this, and all the belts are purple, everything is working, and it's just a matter of scaling up and scaling out and just continuing increasing the throughput. Things are coming in, just building a massive amount here. 4.2 million plastic is stockpiled because it's just a matter of consuming all the plastic comes in. We have a really good iron system coming in here. I am really proud of this one. I love the fact that we can have 3 stations coming in, and then they go into this 24 to 24 splitter and feeding into these. You can see, look at the numbers. 1 million steel is stored. One, two, three. Yeah, just 1 million here, 1 million as well. Copper. Oh, this is the red circuit. The copper here, that's not so much, but that's because this one is kind of the jewel of the base. This is what is guiding all of the throughput here. And we'll just take a peek in here, because this is what really drives the factory. So we have 8 of these. Each of these, oops, running out. Each one of these small ones can consume two full belts of copper and 1 full belt of iron. And so we need 8 belts inside here, 8 belts inside here, 8 belts inside here, going in and coming out as into this one, where it simply gets stored, or actually it goes on the bypass until it very, very rarely is going into storage. It's split out until 8 lanes. One of the lanes seems to be stuck for some unknown reason. And that's okay, so that's just because this is starting to get stuck. So things are working as well as they can here, and here we have a better blue circuit factory. It's working fine, but it's not really taking all of the green that we can't go in here. So that's going to be one of the things that can be scaled up. In terms of science, we've searched a number of these, and we've worked our way up to the faster than light theory C, and then we just lead the faster than light propulsion system. This is the nightmare one. And rockets launched, 100 rockets, SpaceX components. Yes, we launched a number of them. None of the last part of the spaceship construction, but a lot of the dry dock, all of the dry dock and satellites have been sent up. So let's jump forward in time to the last episode and see how it all comes together in the end. Here we are in the very final episode of the game. It is, you can see here how big the solar panel array is, how the structure of the base is the same, how much has actually been expanded outside of this, and of course the travel time for the robots, if there are any robots. Yeah, that is getting kind of excessive to get in here. But with a lot of robots, with a lot of miners, all that things. One of the things that have been important to add was this one, Breedor, made by Jeff S. It was added because there was nothing to do with all the uranium. It's just simply impossible amount. So this one is a special reactor that can convert it into iron and copper. Pretty neat, and seems very well in tune with this base. Let's have a look at the SpaceX. You can see here. Well, it's very boring. It just says that interstellar launches 1. Very boring. And rockets, satellites, normal conventional satellites, 600 and 465. So that's a decent number. And that can be just enabled at any given time. At this point, it's simply just a single here, because we're playing for so long that this is simply enough. It's okay. As long as this one just keeps going, it's going to be fine. With the expensive recipes, it's very hard to keep up. There's a good stockpile here, and there's a good stockpile here, but eventually you can see how little blue circuits is actually being produced, even with 4 lanes coming in. Then yeah, that's just all that comes in, and I'm just unable to make it any bigger than this. Damn, this autosave is haunting me today. But at this point, everything, oops, I was wrong with it. Everything is really working as well as it can given the conditions of this space. The green circuits up here, they are working really well, but you can also see that they are not stockpiling yet. Still not stockpiling, but very close, which is absolutely brilliant to see that even though we're feeding 24 lanes of 66.67 items per second feeding into here, converting all of it in due course, then it's still not possible to, or it's still possible to consume all of it. And in order to scale up from here, it would have to be a massive additional effort to do that, and that doesn't really make sense to do that. So that's basically at the end of the space. At the end here, there is no uranium left, no nuclear power plants left, because that was just not worth it. All of these locations are the ones that have been been done by the supporters. There are several here inside. In total, there's been 100 Mark 1 factories, 49 Mark. Ooh, that was a rocket. 49 Mark II factories and 21 Mark III factories. So it's been an absolute blast to have this. I must say that some of the things that really made this come together was the fact that this modded Factorismo version, where let's go up to this one that looks the most awesome here. This one, with the name of the supporter as well as the spinning icons, is absolutely brilliant. The Factorismo mod here that keeps track of it, the mod to keep track of all of the power consumption. It did not even turn out to be relevant, luckily for me, but it was good to keep track of that. And on top of that, the last one was the breeder reactor created to sort of offset all of the excessive uranium that did not have a use. And to that, I will really have a request to the developers: make a proper usage for uranium. It is just junk on the map at this point, which is particularly troublesome in a location where you have to mine it. Anyway, I'm really proud of the space. 230 hours and 45 live streams. It has been an absolute blast to stream this, and I want to thank everyone who has been supporting me during this, watching, supporting, cheering, donating, and patronage. It's been amazing. And well, now it's onwards to the next one. Now it's the Maze Runner that's going to be our next big series, and let's hope that's going to be as awesome as this one. So an era ends and another one begins. Thank you very much for your support and your viewership. If you like what you saw, be sure to leave a like and a comment below. And if you feel it would be interesting to someone, feel free to share it. And if I have earned your subscription, well, thank you very much. And I'll see you some other time. Bye.